The Racing Postcast, in association with Paddy Power, they prize support UK and Irish racing the night before.
Hello everyone, welcome along to the Racing Postcast with me, Sam Laurie, Paul Keeley in the studio alongside. We've also got Richie Forrestal, our Ireland editor, making his Postcast debut on the phone, and from up in York, Paul Binfield of bookmakers Paddy Power. Lots to pack in. We'll be looking ahead to the final day of York's Ebor Festival. Also a good card at Sandown on Saturday. Good action at the Curragh on Saturday and Sunday, plus a couple of Group 1s from Deauville to look ahead to. But we'll get straight on looking ahead to York. But before we do that, actually, regular listeners will know, Richie, this is your Postcast debut. Just tell us a bit about yourself, how you've come to wind up as Ireland editor of the Racing Post.
Yeah, I hope Bruce doesn't end up wondering how I came up to wind up as editor of the Racing Post in another few short weeks. But no, look, I've a background in the game, obviously. I used to rode for 7 or 8 years in England. Back when Kim Bailey was in his prime, I joined him, and unfortunately Kim began to struggle a little bit when he was in Lambourne. My claim was down to £3, and things got a bit difficult at that time. But I was there I rode about 70 out my claim and so on. And then I decided to kind of cut my losses and come back. As everyone knows, it can get tough when the claim is gone. But so I came back, and since then, that was 2003. And since then, I have been writing and doing a bit of studying as well. In the meantime, somehow managed to qualify to become a secondary school teacher. But I haven't put it to much use since, because I've been kept busy with the writing, mostly over the last number of years with the Irish Independent. And for the past 5 years, I've been their chief racing correspondent. And then in the last few weeks, I've taken this opportunity to become the Ireland editor of the Racing Post, which was, a super chance to get, and not one, I must say, if you'd asked me a couple of months ago, not one even then that I would have ever imagined kind of coming to fruition. It came kind of out of nowhere unexpectedly, but a great chance to get, and, great team involved with the Post. So I'm delighted to get it and really excited about it going forward,
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic to have you on the team, and we'll find out how you are at tipping winners over the next 20 minutes or so, I'd imagine. We'll start off with the Ebor, and Paul Binfield, news this morning, Ivan Grozny out, and imagine that's given the market a fair old shake-up.
Yeah, really disappointing, Sam, that Ivan Grozny was found lame. All of us are to our graves now, not knowing whether, the £4 penalty, whether he was really well in after winning by 14 lengths at Galway. But the market has had a shake-up. We now have the Northumberland Plate winner Antiquarium as 5-1 favourite. Kinema, who will be assisted by Pat Cosgrave in the saddle at 9-1. Quick Jack at 10-1. And Elidor Seymour 11-1, 12 bar.
Have you got a view on the race?
I really quite like Seymour, actually, Sam. The horse that agonisingly failed for trainer Brian Ellison to win the one race that Brian probably wants to win more than anything, the Northumberland Plate. And 11-1, I think the horse could well give him some ample compensation in the Ebor.
Yeah, was that key form line there, the Northumberland Plate, Paul Keeley, that you think holds the key to this race?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a great fan of tipping at short prices in these handicaps, but when I saw the market, I was absolutely staggered that Ivan Grozny was favourite, given then that the forecast was likely to be very fast ground that Ivan Grozny had never run on, and he'd won a Mickey Mouse race at Galway, getting £4 or £5 from a 9-year-old rated 78, and he got a £4 penalty for it, and he was going to get £1 from Antiquarium. Now, the story about the Northumberland Plate was quite simply that Seymour traded at 101 for thousands on Betfair, and everyone thought it was an unlucky horse. But if you look behind, from 2 furlongs out to a furlong out, Antiquarium is just being held in by a couple of horses either side, and jockey James McDonald's cannot do anything about it. When he gets out, he absolutely sprouts wings. He wins. The jockey standing up in the saddle near the end. He won very, very easily. To me, he looked like a cup horse. He's still got a mark of 104. I'll be very, very surprised if that's anywhere near... No, sorry, 105 now. Very surprised if that's anywhere near the limit of his ability. And the only concern is whether the Appleby, the Godolphin horses, are in any sort of form. Now, if he was trained by Saib bin Saror, then you'd be seriously worried, because he's had only one runner in August, and that was an easy victory. And the Sweet Solera who finished tailed off. Charlie Appleby's horses had been running really well. Baccarat was third, and the Great St Wilfrid off a mark of 114 last week.
Hawkbill wasn't so good.
Slight worry now this week. Hawkbill, I thought, was more predictable than Endless Time in the Yorkshire Oaks. Hawkbill was running on fast ground for the first time, and you see horses act really well on soft ground, and irrespective of what their breeding is, right, it does take a rare horse to act on very fast ground just as well, and I think he got found out there. But Endless Time had everything in her favour, and she might not have been good enough to win, but she shouldn't have been beaten 40 lengths. She just stopped halfway up the straight, so that is a worry. But having said that, if you start basing your theories on the runs of two horses, you're going to end up being in trouble. And I just think Antiquarium's the best horse in the race, probably by a long way.
What do you think the ground will be like there tomorrow, Paul?
That's another worry, because he's only run on good to soft ground once and didn't run very well. It has only just started to rain, apparently. Now, they're forecast roughly 5 mil. Now, that shouldn't, if anything, it was firmer than good to firm yesterday.
Right.
If they only get 5 mil, then by the end of the day it dries out again. It won't be worse than good. The forecast again has changed for Saturday. They're now just saying sunshine and showers, so some could be heavy. You know what it's like, but I don't know. They could get more than 5 mil today. Apparently, it was absolutely hammering down in Leeds a couple of hours ago. So if they get that sort of rain, we don't know. We'll have a better idea at the end of play today, I suppose.
Richie, the Irish.
Under the weather point of view, I quite like Heartbreak City in this. It's a race that the Irish trainers have a good record in recent years. I think we've won it 3 times and had 2 wins in the last couple of years as well. Heartbreak City won at the meeting last year. He won the 2 mile handicap there last year. Now, he was off 81 back then, and he won tidily. And he's in off 103 tomorrow. But I would think as long as the fastness has gone out of the ground, he'll be happy. And if it were to get any bit softer, it wouldn't bother him in the slightest. He reappeared at Cork over 10 furlongs in a 10 furlong handicap in March off 88, and he danced up under Shamie Heffernan by 12 lengths. Now, this is one of Tony Martin's, so I don't know whether that was part of the plan or what, but the conditions dictated that he ended up winning by 12 lengths, and he went from 88, and he's in here now off. He had Chester in the Chester Cup off 103, and he didn't run a race in it. He was kind of caught wide, and when his chance was gone, he was left alone. If you like, he wasn't going to get any closer, so he was just nursed home. And then he turned up a Tipperary in the maiden hurdle on good ground, and he won. And he went to Galway in a handicap off 118, and he won like he had a stone in hand. To be honest, he just got a gap late.
What mark was he off over hurdles?
He went from 118, and he's gone up 7 for that, but
to 125.
Yeah, I mean, if he'd have got out, he could have gone out, won by another 5 lengths. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing to say is, I would add 50 to the flat mark to get them up. They should be running off over hurdles if they got the same ability. That's what our handicap always tells us. So he's probably lobbed in there.
It's possible,
He's gone up to 103, but you needed to be 99 to get in this year anyway, didn't you? So you probably actually did need to win that far.
These days, isn't it? Gone are the days where you could get in off a low rate in the handicap.
Exactly, yeah. So you probably did need to win by nearly that far, at least, anyway,
Yeah, and they have booked Adam McNamara. I must say, I don't know an awful lot about him, but he's taken 5 off. I think he's riding a few winners over at the moment. He's
okay. He's definitely worth his 5 for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, especially if the rain was to come, I think it would inconvenience him a lot less than it would others if it were to turn on the slow side. He's drawn 15. I don't think in mile and 6 furlong races it's going to matter that much. Maybe
used to when they stuck to the far side, but now they sort of avoid that, but like the plague, don't they? They come up the middle, even come to stand side, and that's not necessarily a problem.
Yeah, so I mean, he was 14-1 last night when I looked. Now I think he's been trimmed into 12s or so with Ivan Grozny out, but I mean, he's also got Quick Jack in it, and he kind of is what he is. They pick and choose their races with him these days. He's been third in 2 Cesar, which is, and he came from Stone last in the Chester Cup, and he was only beaten a few lengths, and Ushinor takes 7 off him as well. He is what he is. I mean, he'd have a chance as well, absolutely have a chance, but if there was one in the whole field that stood out to me, it was Heartbreak City, just the manner of the way he won at Galway. He's a horse that could be on the up, and we know what Tony Martin is capable of in these races,
Okay, so to wrap up, Heartbreak City for Richie, Seymour for Paul Binfield, and Antiquarium for Paul Keeley in the Ebor. Seeding 325, it's the Jim Crack. And Paul, how are you betting on this one?
Well, we go 7-4, the Godolphin horse Blue Point. Sam Macaris is 4-1, along with Mubtasim. Intelligence Cross 8-1 and 10-1 Bar.
And this would be the same sort of story as the previous race we were talking about, Paul. The form of the Charlie Appleby runners, you'll know a bit more by this stage. Blue Point, the one to beat here, do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's obviously the one to beat on that run at Goodwood. I mean, it probably disappointed quite a few people because he did win and he was odds on having scored by a real wide margin at Doncaster the time before that. But it's no disgrace going down to Memas, who's only sort of really found the brilliant Caravaggio too good for him at Ascot and has basically won everything else in Britain since. And Blue Point still looked a little bit inexperienced. But,
it was a little bit disappointing, wasn't it, the way he looked like he might boss the field at Goodwood, didn't it? And
Yeah, it did. He just come up against a battle-hardened opponent with a bit of class, and maybe he just got caught out a little bit, and he might come on. But then, at the end of the day, he doesn't set a really exacting standard. I mean, we haven't seen a brilliant British-trained colt yet, that's for sure, as a 2-year-old. And I like of the next two in the betting, I like Mubtazim from William Haggis because he really, really did look the part when winning at Haydock. He beat the right horse in second, who won by a wide margin before, and I think the third had also won a wide margin before that. And obviously that form is nowhere near yet. He's got to step up again, but he looks like he's got it within him. Both he and Macaris will probably also want fast ground, though. I think Macaris has already flopped on soft ground, so it would be a little bit of a worry if the rain came and it does ease the going. And that would bring Ardad in it, who didn't run any sort of race at Newmarket, but I think got upset a bit early in the race, and that wasn't him. If you go back to his Windsor Castle on soft, it'd be interesting. But it'd be Mubtazim for me is the one that excites me the most.
Yeah, Mubtazim, trained by William Haggis, who's won this race 3 times in the last 10 years for Paul. Richie, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, well, Ryan has Intelligence Cross in it, obviously, ran in the Richmond as well. I don't think I don't think he's one of their leading. He doesn't like to let these races go without a runner, and he's been nominated. Look, the horse is in great form. He could run a big race, you wouldn't know. But I kind of echo Paul's thoughts on it a little bit. Macaris and Mubtazim, I thought, were 2 really nice sorts. I know Macaris ran bad in the but I know a lot of people put it down to the ground, but the ground wasn't anyway fast. I think it was on the slow side when he won at Haydock previously. I don't know if there was more to it than just the ground at Ascot. And I thought he looked like a lovely horse at Newbury, the way he quickened and went away. But again, Mubtazim, for me, he looks a really precocious, kind of keen, free-going, early 2-year-old, if you like. I know we're not early anymore, but he looks like a really precocious sort of juvenile. I just love the way he did it the last day. Could be tailor-made for this. He was 9-2 last night when I looked. I don't know if that's still the case. I thought it was a big price about a horse that looks tailor-made for this sort of race.
Okay, so 2 votes for Mubtazim. Paul, are you going to make it 3?
No, I'm going to go for a big price one, actually. I think the Last Lion is a big price at 16-1, second to Yalta in the Moulcombe at Goodwood, and looks an explosive sort of colt, and the Last Lion could go well at a huge price.
Yeah, a couple of other decent races on the card at York on TV. Paul, I know you're keen on one in the Melrose at 250.
Yeah, Jamie, Mark Johnson's Jamie. I watched this race at Goodwood, and it was just as they were going in the stalls, I thought I'm going to have a couple of quid on this because it's a bigger price than I thought it was, and I watched it, and he seemed to hate the experience from start to finish. He was never ever travelling, and my initial feeling was he just didn't handle the track at all. Which might be the case, but Paul Hannigan said that he actually got upset in the stalls as well, so he might have run a moody race. But to get so close to winning, I mean, the winner was Dal Harold. It was quite a close finish. Shreo, who's Shreo, I think he pronounced it, is in the race as well,
than me.
And his favourite, and he was only just behind that one. And I think if he runs either a less moody race or prefers Goodwood. Prefers York to Goodwood, then I think that he's got a big run in. He's by Ifraj. He's not remotely bred to stay a mile and 6, not to stay a mile and 4 either, and he got that really, really well. So I think he's got to be a massive, massive player. And I had a decent bet on him earlier in the week at 12s when when Dal Howard was still in the race, and I couldn't believe it was still 12s when Dal Howard came out and the decks came out. So yeah, I do quite like the horse, yeah.
And Richie, there's a couple of Irish runners in there for Aidan O'Brien, well-bred ones at that as well. Unicorn, a brother to Bondi Beach, and Kelstorm, a brother to Order of St George. How do you think they'll get on?
Yeah, I had a look at that race, and I just thought it was difficult enough. Now, there was nothing that jumped out in it to me. I did like one earlier on, not Irish one as it happens, in the Strensall. Michael Stout and Andrea at Saini team up for Diploma. Now, it's a proper Group 3. You've got your Air Pilot and your Tullius and Custom Cut and Gabriel and Scottish and all them in there, and this filly would be fairly unexposed sort compared to them, but that's kind of what I'd like about her, if you like. She won well there, more or less over course and distance. It was 10, she's over, I think it's around 9 tomorrow. She has won over 10 before there, actually, earlier on in the year as well. But she's a 3-year-old filly by Dubawi, and she's after winning 2 of her last 3. She was beaten in the Ascot handicaps. I think it was the Sandringham, but she didn't run too bad either. And I just think she's a filly with the scope to step up. She has plenty to find on ratings and all the rest of it, but she's obviously getting the allowances as well. And a lot of them are, what they are what they are, and a lot of them aren't going to improve an awful lot more, whereas she might have a little bit of scope to do so. I think she's around 9-2. I thought she was the other one on the card that stood out for me.
Okay, that's 15, the Strensall Stakes. Paul, anything else on the York card?
Yeah, I've got a couple of inches. I'll come to the Strensall in a minute, but in the opener at 1:45, I've been watching Snow Arno pretty much all season. He hasn't won since he won over 1.5 miles here with a bit of ease in the ground. Beat Master Paver, who's gone up £9 since for 3 good runs. Snow Arno keeps travelling well over 1.5 miles. Then he ran at 10 furlongs at Goodwood last time on very fast ground. I don't think he wants it as fast as it was there. And he got in all sorts of trouble and was just staying on at the death. I think tomorrow's race is going to be absolutely tailor-made for him if they knock the firm out of the going, the rain, and I think it'd be a fair price. And going to the Strensall, here's a proper guess for you. We've got William Haggis, 7-year-old, called Yorker. Hasn't run for 805 days, never run in Britain. It's actually a 3-time Grade 1 winner in South Africa. I couldn't tell you what the strength of the form's like, and I dare say few people in Britain could. But the BHA handicappers have settled on a rating of 118, which is by far, by a fair way, the best horse in the race for a horse who's trading at a double-figure price. Now, we don't know how ready he's going to be. Look on Raceform Interactive earlier on, and William Haggis, the last 3 that have run for more than a year off, have all won. The last one was 651 days off. He has had, in the last 10 years, the biggest gap that a horse of Haggis's has overcome is 784 days, and that one also won at 8-1. So he's got. This is
a very well researched.
He's
guess,
got
then.
all the. Well, yeah. It was a guess, and then I started looking into it. I still don't know what the form is worth, But at the end of the day, the BA has he's by £4 the best horse in the race. He's getting £4 off the top 2, Air Pilot and Tullius. And if he's fit and he's as good as the BHA handicapper suggests he is, then he's the wrong price at a double-figure price. Simple as that.
It's slightly unusual that they've given him a mark, is it?
Yeah, he's got a world mark or whatever, but he's given him a mark. We've got him down in there as 118, which makes him £4 better than Custom Cut, £5 better than the rest. At a double-figure price for a trainer who has obviously got a record for getting them fit off a break. And he's put them in the Champion Stakes as well. So. They're obviously thinking that he's still got plenty of ability.
Paul Binfield, what price have you got Yorker in at for this?
We've got Yorker at 11-1. Unbelievable research from Paul there. There's no wonder he's on a 7-figure salary at the Racing Post after that.
I wish, mate.
Yeah, and the favourite Scottish, that one's in at 7-2, and we'll probably know a bit more today after we see how Trip to Paris gets on in the Lonsdale Cup.
Yep, and Paul Binfield, anything else you like the look of at York for listeners to make a note of?
Well, I don't know if I like it myself, but I think in the Melrose, the favourite, Shraro, or however you say it, it's a terrible one, 7-2 favourite. Frankie on board, the ladies will be backing him, so the bookies will certainly want that one to be chinned. I think anything out race will be a result, and Paul Keely's Jarme, that one's another 11-1 chance for a lovely double for listeners if those two could come in along with Yorker.
OK, well, up next, we'll be looking ahead to Sandown and the Curragh.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Sticking with the Saturday action, then we'll look ahead to the card at Sandown, 2:30. The Group 3 Atalanta Stakes, 12 declared for this. 8 of the last 10 winners have been 3-year-olds and Persuasive, the Sandringham Handicap winner at Royal Ascot, unbeaten in 4 runs to date. And Paul Keeley, the one to beat here?
Yeah, almost certainly. I think she won the Sandringham really well, didn't she? She's had a bit of a break since. She's not the highest rated in the field, though. That goes to Blonde Me, who's an official mark of 107. Not really done anything last 2 starts, but does act very well at Sandown. So I think it'll be interesting for me at a likely price, given her rating. There's a filly in there that I've done my brains on a couple of times this year, Mix and Mingle. I don't quite know how she managed to get beat last time, but she did. I've got a sneaky feeling that she just doesn't quite see out Ireland. And if we get her dropped to a strong run, 7 furlongs, she'll do thinking of something like the Park Stakes. Is it at Doncaster next month? Maybe might be the right race for her. But I would say bit of value, Blonde Me against Space.
Down one of your local tracks. I know you like to find one there in the handicaps. Anything else on the card standing out for you?
Yes, more rain the better for Hugo Palmer's Baydar, who, thanks to Mark Johnson running firefighting off a mark of 113. Not very often that you get a handicap, a horse running a handicap of that sort of mark, away from the major festivals. He bolted up last time off 108, so he's not without a chance. But it means he's given £26 to Baydar, who's on a hat trick, will relish every drop of rain that falls. Does handle fast ground, but will be happier with a bit of ease in it. Has Josephine Gordon taken £3 off? Hugo Palmer said he thinks he will develop into a stakes horse. Now, I was a bit surprised he hadn't put him in the Cambridgeshire, but he did say he was a bit immature as well, so maybe he thinks it's probably not the right year for him. But I think off a mark of 95, Baydar, the only 3-year-old in the race, will take a hell of a lot of beating. OK, that's Baydar in the 3:40 at Sandown for Paul. Looking ahead to the action at the Curragh, a couple of Group 3s there on Saturday, including the Irish Ledger Trial, 2:45. Order of St George just got the 4 rivals, easy winner of this last year. Richie, couple of questions for you. Bruce isn't on the show today. I'll cheerlead the Order of St George for the Arc, because he's his big fancy for the big race there. First of all, how do you think he'll get on Saturday, and what about in the big one in October?
I think it is in the back of their mind. The disappointing thing with him, 12 furlongs, really. They haven't given him a chance to prove that he can do it over a mile and a half. He hasn't been beaten. He's run, I think, 5 times since he was last beaten in a similar race to tomorrow's, actually, at the Curragh by Bondi Beach last year. He was just short-headed by him. But since then, he's run over 14, 13, 14, 14, 14 after the Gold Cup. So it's slightly surprising that they didn't give him a chance to prove himself over 12 furlongs. I think it is in their minds. I'm pretty sure Aidan has said that they will consider it. Obviously, I'd imagine via the Irish St Ledger first.
Well, they might have to, given the lack of 1 mile 4 furlong colts that they've got, haven't they? Really, when you think about it. Yeah,
which kind of makes it again all the more surprising that they didn't experiment with him over shorter. Maybe they could have trained him for a King George. That's a 12 furlong group one that cuts up every year these days.
Perhaps they're not really convinced.
They're not?
Perhaps they're not convinced.
Yeah, which is the concern, I suppose. Maybe their thinking is that in October, if they were to run him in Longchamp, or it's not Longchamp this year, sure it's not, it's
Shanty,
yeah, that it'll be soft and it'll bring his stamina into play. But he's a high class horse, isn't he? There's no doubt about it. He could be 1 to 10 tomorrow. I can't see him being beaten. He's got to give weight away, but you'd be very disappointed if he was to get beaten. Dermot Weld has an interesting horse in it called Charming Kitten, who finished 3rd at Down Royal on his first start in Ireland. He was an American import, basically one of Kenneth Rams, I think. And Benke, which finished 2nd at the also runs tomorrow, Harry Rogers. But I would imagine Charming Kitten will turn that form around and maybe be the one to push Order St George hardest. He finished quite nicely at Down Royal, and I'd say they came away happy enough that it was a good start to his European career. So I can't see past Order St. George, and I wouldn't put anyone off. If they did fancy him for the Arc, I wouldn't put anyone off backing him. At this stage, especially bearing in mind the way it can come up. Conditions is there in the autumn. The other race then is the Curragh Stakes Group 3. It's a really kind of deep 2-year-old race. O'Brien has Leo Minor in it. He was being caught by Nevada at Naas over 6 furlongs, and he drops to 5 here, so that might be in his favour. There are stars in it, if you like. They're much of a muchness. He also has sportsmanship, which ran over 5 the last day at Goodwood, and looked to have plenty pace early on, and then got a bit caught flat-footed and kept going again behind Yalta and the Molecum. And prior to that, he ran at Leopardstown and raced quite keenly over 6. So I would imagine 5 might be right up his street now that he's had the benefit of the outing at Goodwood. I think he'd be sharper for it. Like I say, he got tapped for Total last day, but I'd imagine he will be better for that experience. So I'd give sportsmanship a life in that. But maybe the one, just to mention as well, Eddie Lynham, Poyce Alexander, and we know what he's like with sprinters, and this thing is a sister to Dandy Man and Anthem Alexander, and she ran a really good race behind Intelligence Cross, as it happens, in a maiden at the Curragh in June. So, she's dropping in trip now as well, down to 5, but we know what Eddie Lynham is capable of with these sprinting fillies, so she's keeping an eye for on the market. The one that kind of really stands out for me at the moment is Mick Halford's Yulong Babai, I think it's called, if I pronounced it right. She went to the last day and really dominated the field over 5, showed a whole load of pace, and beat Swish. And if I'm not mistaken, Swish has come out again. Yeah, she's come out again and won at Dundalk. Just had a look there. So, Yulong Babai looks like a filly that's really starting to mature all of a sudden and could become quite smart at this sort of discipline. So if I was to back one in the race, it'd probably be Yulong Babai, but the two that I would respect most, apart from her, would be Sportsmanship, O'Brien's Colt, and Poyce Alexander. Would be interesting to see if there's any money coming to her in the market.
Okay, well, thanks, Richie. Before we get the best bets of Saturday, Paul Binfield, anything else to throw in from Sandown or the Curragh for you?
Yeah, I like a horse called Dark Alliance at the Curragh in the 4:30. That one was awarded the race when Captain Power was first past the post. I've been told that he's really well handicapped off a mark of 77 from one of our Irish spies, and I think that horse will go very well at the Curragh.
This will not be beaten.
Okay, Saturday nap, starting with you, Paul Keeley.
I think Baydar is the one that will take a hell of a lot of beating at Sandown, 340.
And for you, Richie?
I'm going to go with Diploma in the Strensel.
And finally for you, Paul Binfield?
Definitely going to go for that Dark Alliance, Sam.
Okay, great stuff. Up next, we'll be looking ahead to the Sunday action.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Hello, welcome back. Time now to look ahead to the action on Sunday. Good card at the Curragh. Just briefly, Richie, then, what are the best bets on the day at the Curragh on Sunday?
Curragh on Sunday, well, the big race we have is the Group 3 with Fascinating Rock in it. He won the Tattersall's Gold Cup and he's had a break since then. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it up in front of me here. He has to give way to everything.
He's got to give £10, hasn't he?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it because I think he's just a very good horse, and this could be his year if you like. He's had a break, and the plan for Dermot, as far as I can gather all along, has been to train him primarily for the Arc, I think. And they may take in the Champion Stakes, they may take in the Irish Champion Stakes, I'm not sure, but I think he has the Arc in his mind. And if he's going to be winning that, you'd want him to be, or if he's going to be worthy of running in that, I should say, he'd want to be winning on Sunday. But it is a good Group 3. I mean, he's got Endless Drama in there to beat Gerline, this horse who's a potential Group 1 material. And of course, we've got US Army, who was second in the Derby when he beat Idaho, which won the Voltigeur the other day. I have some doubts about US Army Ranger. I'm just not convinced by him. But if you remember, he didn't kind of go through with it at Chester when he beat Port Douglas. And the last day at Epsom, you could make a case in his defence that he came from an awful long way back, and by the time he got to Har's End, it was going to be hard for him to get by him. On the other hand, you could look at it and say, well, he got there and he couldn't get by him. Is there a question mark there? I'm just not convinced by him. Come Sunday afternoon, he could have turned everyone's opinion around about him, and he could turn out to be a serious horse.
Yeah, I'm with you, Richie. There, definitely. He definitely hung fire at Chester, and I thought he got there at Epsom and then didn't want to go through. Interesting. We haven't seen him since.
We might be doing him an awful disservice, and I think we'll find out on Sunday one way or another. But you just have concerns, as to what he finds at the end of it all. But he, I don't know what to read into the fact that O'Brien has opted to run him here rather than Found. He clearly didn't fancy Found, especially in York. Yet he opted to run her there so that this lad could have a run here. Maybe he's hoping he'll be good enough to win it in her absence. I don't know. I'd like to see more from him before I go backing him. And then there's Moonlight Magic. Jim Bulger's a big fan of his. He says he could still be a good horse. Success Days, was placed in the Tattersall's Gold Cup. If it got very soft, you'd give him a life of being placed as well. But for me, this is fascinating Rocks race. It'd be disappointing if he wasn't good enough to give the weight away if they are thinking about Champion Stakes or Irish Champion Stakes or maybe even an Arc. Then he's the horse that should be winning this Sunday.
So that's fascinating rock in the 3:45 for Richie. Have you got a strong view on either of the 2-year-old races, just who's going to win?
Yeah, I don't have strong views on any 2-year-old races. I abhor them, but I think Brave Anna should be hard to beat, really. I think she should be hard to beat. The other one, it's open, but I mean, Churchill, look, they're boring selections, but Churchill and Brave Anna are the two. I couldn't really make a case against them, to be honest. Yeah,
2-year-old race you might have a strong view on. Comes up at Deauville on Sunday. Lady Aurelia going to be long odds on for the Prix-Morny. Paul, is she a good thing?
Well, Racing Post ratings, £17 clear. Top speed, £28 clear. If she's, she wasn't stopping at the end of 5 furlongs at Ascot. If she's good as she was then she can't get beat, can she? I don't see how anything can get near her.
And the other Group 1 on the card, the Prix Jean Romanet.
And that's far, far more open. I'm quite interested in the top one, Alan de Roy Dupré Sayana, who is a half-sister to 2 Group 1 winners, including Sayuni, who won the Sun Chariot a few years ago. She looked, she's by Galileo. She looked a bit of a superstar in her early races. She came over to Britain on Derby Day, and she was rumoured to have a little bit dodgy legs. So I thought it was a funny place to take her. Was to take her to Epsom, and she went down like she was walking on broken glass, and she came back the same way. Finished second, given an awful lot to do, but I think that's because the jockey was just looking after her on the downhill track. She's miles better than that. She may well be up to Group 1 standard. I've no idea what price she'd be.
Paul Binfield can help out on that.
She is an 11-4 chance, and we've got Boca Bacchiata in there as a 15-8 favourite, who has some nice form in the book, second to Minding in the Pretty Polly Stakes in Ireland.
If Boca Bacchiata is favourite, then this is very winnable because she's not a proper Group 1 filly for me at all. What price is Batil then?
Batil is 7-1, Paul.
That's the one then. That's just the value because there's a bit of cut. There's a bit of cut in the ground. That's what she wants. May end up after giving all the rain we're getting over here if they get it in France too. She looked really good when she hit some soft ground at Newmarket last time. Dropping trip a little bit of a concern, but she does travel. So Sayana and Batil is the value for me.
And have you got a view on it, Paul Binfield?
I think that Boca Bacchiata's form behind Minding is obviously very strong. I liked her last time when she won the Group 2 at the Curragh for Jessica Harrington, and I don't like tipping up favourites, but I'm worried about Sayana because she got beaten at 2-1 on that day. I hear what Paul said, and I understand that about the track, but I'm just a little bit worried about her stepping up in class after getting beaten in a listed or Group 3 race at Epsom.
Okay, well, many thanks, Paul and Richie. That's all we've got time for on today's show. Do join us again on Monday. Bruce Millington will be back in the hot seat, looking back on all the action at York.
The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They stream all UK and Irish racing live on your mobile, tablet or PC.